is up to my kings, queens, and everybody in between? Today is May 31st, 2021, and it is Memorial Day. It's also a Monday, if you didn't know. And so today we're going to kick off a series called Melanin Mondays. So we're going to talk about all things black, from black history to black businesses, black issues that we need to work on as a community, but there will be no bashing. We do not come to this channel to bash, okay? This is all love and positivity, okay? With that said, today this video is going to be a memorial to a man named Anthony Burns. Okay, so before we get into talking about Mr. Anthony Burns, we are going to talk about the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 and its sister act, which was the Fugitive Slave Act of the year 1850. So initially there was a slave clause, but we're not going to talk about that because that one is not important because it was not as strong as the Fugitive Slave Act. So the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 was an act written by the United States Congress to give effect to the Fugitive Slave Clause in the Constitution. It was authorized, it authorized all of the local governments to seize and return fugitive slaves to their owners. It also put penalties, like fines up to $500 and other different things like that on anyone who aided in the escape of a fugitive slave, and that is the Slave Act of 1793. So now we're gonna talk about the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. And that's the one that got Mr. Anthony Burns captured. That is the reason why he was able to get captured. So the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was passed on September 18th, 1850 by Congress, and it required that slaves were to be returned to their owners even if they were in a free state. It also made the federal government responsible for finding, returning, and trying the fugitive slaves and the people who helped the fugitive slaves. So, Mr. Anthony Burns, happy birthday, sir, was born on May 31st, 1834. So this video is going to serve as his memorial. He was born in Stafford County, Virginia, and during his adolescence he became a Baptist slave preacher at a church, I think it's called the Falmouth Union Church in Falmouth, Virginia. Not Falmouth, Massachusetts, but Falmouth, Virginia, okay? So sometime in the year 1853, when he was about 18 or 19 years old, he got sick of slavery and he decided that he was finna run away. He was finna run far and fast. So he ran away to Boston, Massachusetts. And shortly after he arrived in Boston, Massachusetts, he found work in a little clothing boutique owned and operated by an abolitionist named Lewis. His last name is, it starts with an H. Give me a second. Lewis Hayden. His last name is Hayden. And so roughly like 2 months into his journey as a free man in Boston, he was on his way home from work one night, and then all of a sudden he gets captured. And the reason why he was captured by his owner was because of the Federal Slave Act, not the Federal Slave Act, excuse me, the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. And again, I repeat that it was passed on September 18th, 1850 by Congress, and it required the slaves to be returned to their owners if they were in a free state. And at this time, Massachusetts was a free state, excuse me. So he was captured, and shortly after his capture, a group of abolitionists, they were mixed abolitionists, there was some black people and some white people in there. They were led by Lewis Hayden, who and a clergyman, a clergyman from Worcester. His name was Thomas Wentworth Higginson, and they stormed the courthouse in an effort to go ahead and save and free Mr. Burns, because Mr. Burns, he had been living there, and they wanted him to be free because he's a man too, he's a person. So they all stormed the courthouse because they want this free man to be free, because he shouldn't be a slave. Nobody should be a slave unless there is a debt, and there was no debt. This man just was kidnapped, born into slavery, So I don't know. They didn't specify how much time went by, but they stormed the courthouse, and 13 people end up getting arrested, and one marshal, no more than one person, only one marshal ended up dying in all of this chaos. So he ended up getting tried in court, and he had two attorneys, Richard Henry Dana Jr. and then an African-American attorney named Robert Morris. I'm looking at my notes, by the way. So they go and then they plead his case, And unfortunately, the commissioner decided that he was going to rule in favor of his capturer, i.e. his owner. I'm going to say capturer because people are not to be owned. People are not possessions. Okay, so they rule in favor of his capturer. So this is when stuff starts to get weird, okay? So on the way, for him to get led to the ship, the city is draped in black. Like, the whole path that they're taking to get to the ship is draped in black. They have a coffin. I don't know if the word liberty was, I don't know if it was embedded in it, or if it was singed into it, or if it was carved or written. But it was a giant coffin, like a giant coffin with liberty, and it was just dangling in the middle of State Street. Like, who does that? It's really, really weird. But, y'all, it was a hint. I want to say it might not have even been a whole, it didn't say how many abolitionists were. It may not even have been a whole 200, but they solicited the help of 2,000 federal soldiers. Not 200, okay? 2,000 federal soldiers to escort this man to his ship so that the abolitionists didn't mess with him. So he starts to write letters. I found some of the letters, but due to the way that they were copied onto the website, I couldn't read them. I could have searched for a translation, but I didn't feel it was necessary because this is educational, and if you feel like you need to do more research, feel free to do more research. But back to the topic at hand, okay? Yes, there's a coffin. Y'all, I can't get over the fact that there were 2,000 federal soldiers. Maybe it's because one person died, but it was just one person, you know? But, that's a lot of soldiers. So, during his time away, he's writing them letters, and he's telling them about how, he's thankful to all of his friends, i.e. the abolitionists. He's thankful to all of them for all that they've done, but he still feels down in his spirit because he called it the land of death. He called it the land of death. He said he's back into the land of death, which is slavery, and he didn't like that very much. And I don't think I would either. Like, it's slavery. You're getting forced to do work for nothing. Like, it's slavery. Like, that's the only way you can describe it. It's slavery. But he's writing letters, and so over the time that he's away, he writes one letter. I don't remember exactly what it said, but basically he's like, man, if y'all can just buy my freedom, he will take, like, I'm for sale for cheap. Like, he will take $800 for me, okay? So if y'all can just raise like $800, y'all can get me out of this. So at this time, a man by the name of Reverend Leonard A. Grimes of 12th Baptist Church in Boston, Massachusetts, he led efforts to raise money to buy the freedom. And then on February 22nd, 1855, remember that, y'all, February 22nd, 1855, they were able to buy his freedom at the low price of $676, okay? But you know what? I didn't tell y'all, okay? So that whole shebang with the 2,000 soldiers, that cost a whopping $40,000. Okay, and so $40,000, that's a lot of money now in these times. So imagine how much $40,000 was back in the 1800s. All of the troops and the court case, all of that stuff ended up costing the city $40,000. That is a lot of money, especially for those times. But back to February 22nd, 1955, they bought his freedom for $676. And so he returns to Massachusetts for home. Soon after he gets to Massachusetts, he moves to Ohio to study at Oberlin College. And then he moved to St. Catharines, Canada, where he became a preacher. Shortly after that, on July 17th, 1862, at the age of 28, Mr. Anthony Burns perished, a free man, of tuberculosis. So he died free, and I want to say that he died happy. He was no longer in America. He was no longer a slave. He was a free man. He was a man of God, and he died of tuberculosis. So I guess that would be natural causes. But if y'all have any suggestions on who else we should do for Melanin Monday, go ahead and leave those down in the comment section below. I would thank y'all all for tuning in. Y'all have a good one, and I cannot wait to interact with y'all on my next video.